So today is September 22nd, 2024. We are here with the DalMolin family, Tyler, Becky, Adela, Joe, and Anna. We're talking to them as part of the Stake 50th anniversary video series. We'd like to start with Brother DalMolin. Could you tell us a little bit about your background? You grew up in the Stake. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, your family life, that type of thing?
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in the Globe Second Ward, and we always had our reserved pew kind of on the back, just before the widow's row, and that was where we grew up. Mom made sure that we were all to church most Sundays. Dad came when he could, and yeah, growing up was good for us, I think, in the Second Ward.
What kind of memories do you have at church growing up?
My mom's dad always sat with us and always had candy. And so from very early on, I remember Grandpa always having candy in his pocket, and he'd give it not only to us, but to any of the kids that would even come close to him. If they walked down the aisle, he'd reach his hand out with some candy and share that. So I definitely remember eating candy at sacrament meeting.
Any particular activities? Anything that comes to mind?
No, I wasn't big into going to a lot of the extracurricular activities that were put on. Although I'm sure there were great ones, I didn't participate in a whole bunch of them. I did go on one trip with the young men, and of course Del Merrill was there. He was like the staple in Globe's Second Ward Young Men program forever, I think. And him and others, Brent Layton and others, took us to California for a high adventure type activity, and I went on that. And I remember that being a positive experience.
Was that the one like rowing around Catalina Island?
That's right.
How was that?
It was good. I was probably more of a thorn in their side than a blessing to them. But I remember going and having a good time and spending time with other young men and with Dale and Brent and I remember being a positive thing. I probably should have done more of those, but I remember going on that one.
So, if I'm not mistaken, you're the first young man in the DalMolin family, at least the DalMolins that we all know, to serve a mission. Does that sound right?
Yes.
So how did that happen?
I'm not sure. I've been asked that a bunch by a lot of different people, and I definitely have a few thoughts as to why I went on a mission. So I participated in the seminary program and had great seminary instructors. And I definitely remember, I think it was like senior year or something, I had Edie McBride, and I got along good with Sister McBride because she was a little bit rougher and was willing to tell me, sit down and be quiet, and be a little more forceful with me. And I responded very well to Sister McBride and her way of teaching and handling us boys. And so I definitely liked seminary. I think that had a huge impact on me. There was I can't think of the name of the book right now. It was written by Joseph Worthlin, Elder Worthlin, and he in that book he was discussing his life, and he said that he was blessed with an obedient spirit. And so I think for me, for whatever reason, church just kind of was a little more natural than it is for some. And so for whatever reason, I think I was blessed with that spirit for just a more of an affinity towards the gospel and towards going on a mission. And so it just came to me, I guess.
And tell us where you served.
Florida.
And which Florida's got more than one mission, doesn't it?
It was the Tallahassee mission. Yeah.
And Spanish speaking, correct?
English.
Oh, English.
Mm-hmm.
But you did teach in Spanish sometimes?
Yes. Yeah. There was only just a couple of Spanish missionaries in the mission, and so the mission president encouraged anyone who could speak Spanish to teach in Spanish, because obviously in Florida and even in Alabama there's a huge Hispanic population, and so if you could speak any Spanish at all, they encouraged you to speak as much as you possibly could, and so anyways, I did that, and even served. So enjoyed it. Served with quite a bit of. Served with one companion who was fluent in Spanish, and did a lot of Spanish teaching then. So,
how did you learn Spanish?
I took it in high school, all 4 years, from Mr. Johnston, or Brother Johnston, Max Johnston, and so learned it there, and then also just like working, learned it from people there. So maybe not always the best Spanish in the world as far as grammatical correctness, but learned Spanish there.
So, and did you go off to college a year before your mission, or?
I did. Yeah, I did 1 year at the U of A before I went on a mission, and at the encouragement of I think Sister McBride, I took an institute class. And it just so happened that the institute class that lined up with my college schedule was mission prep. And so I think that helped me go on a mission, because that was like the time slot I had available, and it lined up that was the course that was being offered during that time slot. And so there was a senior couple. They were serving a mission at the institute. They taught that class. And so I took that class from them, and actually they still, twice a year, still call me and make sure I'm active, and encourage me to do my best. So
how does that make you feel when they call?
Good. I mean, I definitely feel like they're checking up on me, making sure I'm doing right. But yeah, they were a senior missionary couple. Now they're in their, I'm sure, mid to upper 80s probably. But they're doing good, and yeah, it makes me feel great when they call and encourage and check, and I think that's good.
So, Sister DalMolin, let's ask you kind of the same questions. Obviously, you didn't grow up here, but can you tell us a little bit about your background, maybe where you grew up, what the church was like there?
Yeah, I grew up in Wilcox, Arizona, so not too far from here, but a little smaller than Globe. At that time, there were 2 really small wards, so also similar to Globe. It was, by the time I was in high school, it was me and one other girl. We were the only members of the church in our class. So it was fun. At times, it was. I had a lot of opportunities to share the gospel and have friends that asked questions, and so that was always really fun. And then after I graduated, I went to the U of A and studied education, and then met Tyler and ended up here in Globe.
So how did you and Tyler meet?
We met when ward boundaries. We met at the Institute. We were on a event planning committee there at the Institute. We probably spoke maybe 3 words to each other during that time. We weren't all that interested in each other. And then ward boundaries changed, and we ended up in the same ward, and our friends kind of came together, and I don't know, something just changed, and yeah, we connected and started dating.
Brother DalMolin, is that the way you remember it?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No, that's pretty much the way it happened. Yeah. they created a new steak in Tucson. It's called Saurita steak, and that changed because she was even in a different state prior to that. So that changed to where we were in the same state, same ward. And so, yeah, that's pretty much how it happened.
Yeah, about 2 years we met, and then about 2 years after we started dating. So it took us a while to, I guess, like the idea.
So you met, you got married. How did you decide to come back here?
I don't think either one of us had planned on coming back to Globe or coming to Globe, but I don't know, an opportunity presented itself, and it just felt right as we prayed about it, and things just kept falling into place. And wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of been a theme of life that, if you're open to what we believe, what the Lord wanted, the Lord just kind of leads you and guides you and takes you there. And so I think that was true, like with us coming together as a couple. Ward boundaries changed, and although we knew each other before that, we had never really connected, as Becky said, and I think for whatever reason, the Lord said, okay, now it's time for you guys to connect, and we connected and got married, and the same with coming to Globe. An opportunity for a job arose, and we talked about applying for it. It wasn't really on our radar. Our radar was to stay in Tucson. We had opportunity there to stay and continue doing what we were doing, and it seemed like the Lord wanted us here, and so we applied, got a job here, and came here, even though that wasn't at all what we had planned as we had talked about things or thought about things. Here we are.
Yeah.
Now, when you came here, Adele is your oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Was she already born by the time you came back here? Or?
Yes, she was.
5 months.
Yeah, 5 months old, so not just
She's
barely.
little.
Yeah, barely new. So yeah, little.
So, Sister Dolan, what were your thoughts coming here once you decided this is where the Lord wanted you to be? What impressions did you have of the community and also of the ward here?
Everyone was very welcoming and very kind, and everybody knew Tyler. So when I got to meet a lot of people really, really quickly, and a lot of good people quickly, and so that was nice to see such large family and friend and church support, especially since I was moving further away from my own family, and I didn't know anybody here, and had new baby, and we were moving to a ranch in the middle of nowhere, and so there was a lot going on, and everyone was so supportive, and so it was by far positive experience. Yeah.
What did you think, Bishop?
So when we moved here, and as Becky said, we were moving to take a ranch job, so we were going to be living on the ranch, which technically the ranch is in Miami ward boundaries. We never attended church in Miami ward because President Dalton had decided, kind of in advance, he knew we were coming, that we would attend church in Superior, because just the other side of the road that we lived on, was the boundary between Miami ward and Superior branch. And although we technically lived on the east side of the road, which put us in Miami ward, he gave us an assignment to serve in Superior branch. So although we were coming home, for me, coming back to the Globe Miami area, I really didn't know a whole lot about the Superior branch. And so from a church standpoint, yes, we were coming back to my home community, but we were going to be attending a branch that I didn't know a whole lot about, just because, although we grew up in the stake, I'd never went to that branch or didn't know really anybody there.
Now, how long did you serve in Superior?
Oh my goodness.
About?
Like 4.5 years, I think.
Yeah.
We were there.
And if I recall correctly, you were one of the counselors in the branch presidency, is that right?
That's correct.
So, as you were growing up, your mother came to church an awful lot, and your dad not so much. And I think that was probably the case even when you got called out to Superior. Can you tell us maybe how service in Superior might have helped change all of that?
Yeah. So, as we've already established, Della, our oldest, was, like 5 months old. So she was just a baby. And in the Superior branch, it's kind of like an all hands, or I guess I can't speak for today. Then it was an all hands on deck kind of branch where, if you were in the branch, you had at least one calling, maybe two. And so Becky was given a calling to work in the primary, which was difficult because I had a calling, of course, to be in the branch presidency, and so it was difficult for us to juggle Adela. And so President Dalton decided to help both the branch and us, quite frankly.
Yeah.
He would invite my mom and dad to serve in the branch, which wasn't a new thing. Prior to my parents serving there, brother Standage and his wife, sister Standage, were serving there. And so they kind of, got rotated out, and my parents rotated in. And so, yeah, that was a great blessing to us. But I think in hindsight, it was also a great blessing to mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, your dad helped with Adela, and that kind of helped him get started going back to church every Sunday. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Myself and Carol, Tyler's mom, would serve in primary. We would help in there, and while we were in primary, he would sit out in the foyer and hold Adela. So that was kind of his unofficial calling, was to hold the baby. That was her nap time too, so it worked out perfect. She would just sleep in Papa's arms while we were in primary.
So Adela really helped get her Papa to become active in the church.
Yep.
What a neat story. So, Brother Domlin, well, right now, Adela's Papa is the Bishop of the Globe Second Ward. So he's extremely active at this point, and is doing a wonderful job. And actually, you and your dad got to serve as bishops at the same time. You were the Bishop of the Miami Ward. And then he was called to be Bishop of the Globe Second Ward. What was it like to serve as a bishop at the same time your dad was serving as a bishop and in the same stake?
Yeah, that was interesting for sure. When I was called as bishop, it's almost this unspoken order that a bishop kind of takes you under their wing and helps you with some of the procedural things. And so for me, it was Brent Layton in the second ward. He kind of took me under his wing and helped me learn some of the procedures and like leader and clerk resources on the computer and some of those things help you kind of navigate that. So it was interesting when Dad was called as a bishop that Dad would call me, just as I had called Bishop Layton, and Dad would ask me some of the same questions that I had asked Bishop Layton, and so it was interesting and definitely a neat experience that somebody like my dad, I've always called and asked him questions and asked him for help. And it was interesting, since I'd been bishop for a little while, that he would then call me and ask me questions and ask for help. It was a really neat experience for me, and I would consider it kind of an honor to be able to have that experience with Dad.
So another thing, you were actually sealed to your parents not that long ago. I think it was back in 2015.
That's right.
And I'm assuming this was after you started serving in Superior. Is that right?
That's right. So my parents started serving in Superior in 2013. and my parents went to the temple in 2015, and they were sealed together in the nest of them all in 2015 after about 2 years in the Superior branch.
What was it like to go as an adult and be sealed to your parents?
It was a neat experience.
Yeah, it was a really neat experience. So at that same time, my dad was able to get sealed to his parents, and so the sealer even remarked how interesting it was that in one session, for lack of a better term, that there would be like this multi-generational sealing that the sealer got to officiate in, and that dad was sealed to his parents, and then I was sealed or we were sealed to parents. It was a neat experience.
Yeah.
So, with your experiences in the stake and in the ward and branch here, are there any special experiences, anything that special events that come out to mind or come to mind?
Special events.
Any activities that I mean, you mentioned the one activity going around in the boats around Catalina Island off the coast of California, but any special events since then or activities that
What about that youth one where the Book of Mormon reenactment one? That one?
Yeah, so Becky's talking about Moroni's promise that we did a number of years ago. That was certainly a unique experience. For me as a leader, we sat in the distance and watched these children or youth, have the experiences of living the Book of Mormon, through these reenactments, and of course, the culminating event was the youth meeting the Savior, and that was a really powerful experience, both for us leaders, as we had like a testimony meeting, so to speak, afterwards, and the leaders talked about the experiences of the youth and the things we felt as the youth experienced these, but also as the youth shared their experiences. That I think was memorable for a lot of people in the stake, myself included.
and just to be clear, speak of the youth meeting the Savior, they did a reenactment of the Savior's visit to the Americas, and there was an actor portraying the Savior.
Thank you for clarifying that. I just have taken for granted.
I recall from that event there were a couple of youth that weren't sure if maybe this wasn't the real thing.
Yeah.
So it was a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask this. One of the things that we're hearing a lot from people are about different acts of service that they've been a recipient of, something you've been a beneficiary of different, from members of the stake or otherwise. Are there any special acts of service that have been impactful in your life that you've had here in the stake?
I know for me, when we were released from going to Superior, and we went to Miami, we had only been there a few months, and Tyler was called as bishop, and at that time, Anna was little baby, and Joe was in nursery, and Della was still little too, and so the idea of being on my own down there while he was up in the stand was overwhelming, and there were many who offered to change their routine and their seating to come and sit by me to help, like the Dorothys and Debbie Savage. They were all very quick to come and help me, so that I could enjoy the sacrament meeting as well.
How did that make you feel?
Loved and appreciated and supported, and I think also seen. A lot of times when the bishop is called, the family gets a little bit forgotten, And Miami was very, very good at making sure that that didn't happen. So
And that was a pretty significant trial. Um, when President Pollock extended that calling to me, I know President Chambers, you were there. I don't know if it was if outwardly I grimaced, but inwardly I was worried quite a bit about that calling. Not for me but for Becky, because like we've already established, when we were in Superior, we had my parents there with us, so Becky had help with the kids, as well as the wonderful Superior branch. And then we went to Miami, where we were trying to learn the ward and the ward dynamics, and we sat in the back corner, which is our comfort zone, being in the back corner, and everybody kind of had their assigned seating, and so when I received that call to serve as bishop, I thought, oh man, this is going to be so difficult for Becky. She's going to be back there with 3 little kids, and Becky certainly expressed to me that she was worried and that this was going to be a really big challenge for her. And it was just amazing that people, although they had their pews that they had probably set in since they raised their families, they were willing to move to the back to the nosebleed section and help Becky with the kids while I was kind of doing my thing. It was great, and it helped us out, helped Becky out a lot.
Yeah.
And then fast forward years now, I've been released, and they called Bishop Peary, and that was immediately the thought that we had was, oh, poor Sister Peary.
Yeah.
This is going to be a
it's hard.
thing,
It's hard.
They are in the exact same situation that we were in. Young children, husband's now been called as bishop, and the Miami ward once again is I think doing their thing and supporting the Peary family.
Yeah.
It's great how that works.
Well, I'd like to ask the children if there's anything that they wanted to add. And so, I don't know, Adela, is there anything you'd like to say?
Sure. What are you going to say? Something about
church that you like?
Yeah.
Favorite part about church?
Well, I like spending time with my family.
You like spending time with your family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What about you, Joe? Is there something you really like about church? Something that you've learned at church?
That one of the Peary kids is my friend.
Yeah.
Isn't it good to have friends in the church? Well, great. How about Anna? Anything that you like about church? You're not sure? How about, what do you think of primary? Do you like any of the songs?
Yeah. What's
Do you
your
have a
favorite?
favorite one? I'd love to see the temple. That's one of my favorite too. Why do you like that song?
Do you like going to the temple? Sometimes we walk around on the grounds, huh? Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, before we end, I want to give you a chance to add anything that maybe you thought of as we've been talking. And I'd also like to invite you to leave a brief testimony. So is there anything you'd like to add, and would you be willing to leave a testimony?
I don't think I have anything necessarily to add. I think over our time of being together, we've been in lots of different wards. The ward we were in Tucson was probably the opposite of the type of ward that we're in now, where it was so large they were trying to almost make up callings so that people could participate, and then going from that to Superior, where everyone had multiple callings, and in Miami, where it's pretty similar, where people are really having to do the work to maintain the ward. I think it's been a testimony to me that it doesn't necessarily matter where you are, that the gospel is the same wherever you go, but that you don't have to have this huge ward with all these resources to feel the Spirit testify that it's true, and to have opportunities to serve and to find good people who share your faith and are there to support. And so I'm grateful for that here in Globe. The members here, there's not a lot of us, but everyone that I've met, they're grounded in the gospel. They're here, they come to church for a reason. And so I'm definitely grateful for that. And they've boosted my testimony by their faith and their dedication.
I can't think of anything to add. So I guess I should just share a testimony. And I think if I was to testify of anything after what we've discussed, it would just be that it's the Lord's work, and we're blessed to be able to participate in it in whatever capacity we get to participate. And it's interesting that because it is the Lord's work, we don't always see what's going to happen next. Becky and I didn't see coming to Globe. And then when we came to Globe, we thought it'll be for a short while. And we're still here. And, I didn't foresee, for instance, my dad receiving his own endowment and getting sealed to mom and becoming a bishop. I didn't see those things, but they happened. And I think that's just a testimony that it's the Lord's work. And we've discussed the path that we've been on these past few years, but the path is similar for all of us. We're all moving through the Lord's plan, and we may not see the next step, but if we're willing to be malleable and listen, the Lord will take us where He wants us to go, and have us do the things that He wants us to do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for visiting with us. We are very grateful that the Lord sent you back here. You all have had such an important impact on our state, and especially on Superior Branch and the Miami Ward. It's great having you with us. So with that, that will conclude the interview. Again, thank you for taking the time to visit with us.